The next item comes from Duncanrig Secondary School. There are many accounts of life and death under the hellish rule of Hitler's Third Reich, and there are many names and terms forever darkly associated with the Holocaust. Hitler, resettlement, ghetto, final solution, and Treblinka, to name just a few. There are heroes too, individuals who documented their persecution and left us with unforgettable moving accounts of man's inhumanity to man. One such hero is Primo Levi. His work, If This a Man, serves as a timeless statement to the horrors of Auschwitz. We keep the memory of the Holocaust alive every time we give Primo our attention, and if we do, he will continue to hold our attention for all time. Ladies and gentlemen, Duncanrig Secondary School.
Trauma that cannot and should not ever be consigned to mere history. Its relevance endures as it demonstrates the conditions from which genocide emerges. The recent horrific attacks against the officers of Charlie Hebdo and a Jewish supermarket in Paris remind us that extremism, intolerance and anti-Semitism continue to poison societies around the world. Xenophobia, Islamophobia and other forms of prejudice continue to persist. The lessons that the study of the Holocaust affords us must be continually reinforced and refreshed, not taken for granted. Like people and leaders in Paris, we must stand together to defeat prejudice in all its forms. So we turn to champions of tolerance and people like Primo Levi. Levi was an Italian Jew born in Turin in 1919. In 1943, at the height of the Second World War and at the age of just 24, he was deported to Auschwitz III, Monowitz, the labour camp. He would remain an inmate there until the camp was liberated by the Red Army in January 1945. His experiences are unforgettably documented in his hypnotically powerful If This Is a Man, first published in 1947, a priceless Holocaust testimony.
From the first pages of If This Is a Man, the aim of the Nazi camps is exposed. It is, in Levi's words, the demolition of a man. As the journalist Howard Jacobson has written, the advantage of Levi, having written If This Is a Man so close to his time in Auschwitz, is that recollection has not been worn away by years in controversy. Through this work, Levi speaks to us from the utter depths of suffering.
We are transformed into phantoms. For the first time, we become aware that our language lacks words to express this offence, this demolition of a man. We had reached the bottom. It is not possible to sink lower than this. No human condition is more miserable than this. Nor could it be conceivably so. Nothing belongs to us anymore. They will even take away our name.
Through small and large acts of deprivation and destruction, we follow the demolition of many men, the removal of all hope, of all dignity, of all sense of self. From the reduction of a man to a hoarder of a small grey slab of bread and confinement in a narrow bed in which there is
not even any room to be afraid.
With a stranger who speaks a foreign tongue. New torments, proud and unknown torments. Even the bleak consolation of believing you have reached rock bottom is denied as when the most immediate cause of a particular stress comes to an end.
You are grievously amazed to see that another one lies behind, and in reality, a whole series of others.
The average life expectancy for a new inmate was 3 months. Perhaps the only reason Levi survived was thanks to contracting scarlet fever shortly before Auschwitz was abandoned. In his book, he shares his haunting memories. His arrival at the camp is burned into his memory.
The journey did not last more than 20 minutes. Then the lorry stops and we saw a large door, and above is a sign. Its memory still strikes me in my dreams. Arbeit macht frei. Work sets you free.
To Levi, the villains are the named individuals who treat people like things. Mere objects such as Alex de Capo, who wipes his hand on Levi's shoulder as if he was a mere rag. Even the possession of a name becomes something that prisoners are denied by their oppressors.
My companion of today is No Axen. He is not called anything except that, 018, the last 3 figures of his entry number, as if everyone was aware that only a man was worthy of a name, and that No Axen was no longer a man. He is very young, which is a grave danger.
The heroes in this work are ordinary men who rise above their earthly hell with a superhuman effort to retain their humanity and dignity. Men such as Lorenzo Peroni, an Italian bricklayer who saved Primo's life, risking his own on a daily basis by smuggling food to him.
For all this, he neither asked nor accepted any reward, because he was good and simple and did not think that one did good for a reward. I believe that it was really due to Lorenzo that I am alive today, for his having constantly reminded me that there still existed a just world outside of our own, something in someone still pure and whole, not corrupt, not savage, a remote possibility of good, but for which it was worth surviving. Thanks to Lorenzo, I managed not to forget that I myself was a man.
Not everyone had the strength of mind or body to cope or to hope. Levi sees the terrible fate that awaits most of his fellow inmates from the look on their faces.
To sink is the easiest of matters. It is enough to carry out all the orders one receives, to eat only the ration, to observe the discipline of the work and in the camp. Only rarely did one survive more than 3 months in this way. All those who finished in the gas chamber have the same story, or more exactly, they have no story. They follow the slope down to the bottom, like streams that run down to the sea.
Primo tells his story in a calm, measured and dispassionate voice. He transforms the extreme suffering into knowledge and understanding. Levi tells us of his horrors he dealt with. He explains,
The days all seem alike, and it is not easy to count them. Around us everything is hostile. We feel all around us the evil presence of the barbed wire which separates us from the world. And on the scaffolding, on the trains, on the roads, in pits, men and more men, slaves and masters, the masters slaves themselves. Fear motivates the former, hatred the latter. All other forces are silent, all are enemies or rivals.
One of Levi's themes that was Auschwitz was indescribable, yet describe it he must. His account is unique, calm, and at times detached. His efforts to tell his story, like his efforts to survive Auschwitz, are heroic and inspirational. On January 23, 1945, by which time Auschwitz had been evacuated by the Nazis, Levi stated,
For the first time since the day of my arrest, I find myself free, without armed guards, without wire and fences between myself and home.
Despite the fact his abusers were nowhere to be seen, the inmates remained helpless and powerless, trapped by their own weakness and confusion for another 4 days. Then, on 27th of January,
Dawn. On the floor, the shameful wreck of skin and bones. Somaji. We cannot wash ourselves until we have eaten, so we dare not touch him until we have cooked and eaten. The dead can wait. The Russians arrived as we were carrying Somaji a little distance outside the camp. He was very light. We overturned the stretcher on the grey snow. Charles, a Frenchman, removed his berry. I regretted not having a berry.
at the unimaginable moment of actual liberation, Levi can only think of his inability to show dignified respect towards a fellow inmate who has just passed away. This sums up the profound humanity and decency of Levi. His feelings are simple and somehow noble.
After his return to civilization, Primo Levi suffered deep psychological trauma as the scars of his suffering in Auschwitz persisted. This led him to the idea of capturing his experiences in a book. In January 1947, Levi sent a manuscript to publishers for a book he had written called If This Is a Man. It was published by October 1947, with 2,000 copies being printed. Levi died in 1987, aged 67, after a fall in the stairwell of his third-floor apartment. His death is shrouded in mystery, but family and his closest friends are adamant that this end was a tragic accident.
The Holocaust and the prejudice that came long before are something we must never forget. It is always important to keep the memory alive, important to ensure nobody ever has to experience such horrors ever again. There can be few or more effective and immediate ways we can all keep the memory of the Holocaust alive than by turning to Levi's unforgettable and inspirational work of memory, hope, and humanity. Thank you.